Get ready as we scrub in and dive deep into the question of what is your why? We'll explore personal stories, practical lessons, insights into innovation, health education, and more.
Join us as we talk with doctors, healthcare professionals, and community members to learn why they chose healing, hope, and humanity.
Welcome back to Season 3 of Scrub In. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi there. Another exciting episode today.
Yeah, you've got your your sultry voice on.
I am a little sultry today. That's because I have this fabulous new jacket on.
I know.
It's making me feel quite sultry.
I know. We're fancy now.
All right. So today we have a special guest with us here today, Tony Prado. He is from the Delmarva Blood Bank of Delmarva. So we're very happy to have you join us here today and discuss a little bit about what you do and your why.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here with you guys at the Scrub In podcast. I love the swag here. It's looking good.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got new swag. We always start our podcasts with a quote. So we're going to start with our quote for the day, which is, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And that was Margaret Mead that said that. So
I love that.
yeah, and that definitely pertains to the blood bank. I am an every 8-week donor. I'm O negative, and like I was saying earlier, if I don't have an appointment scheduled for 8 weeks, I get a call by 6 from you all. So I'll be honest, I know what the number looks like on my phone, but Tyler and I were talking about before, blood is so important.
Yes.
We both have seen, major traumas, major issues that patient was definitely saved by the blood that was provided by you all. So tell us about yourself. What brought you to the blood bank, and what do you do there?
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the fact that you and Tyler see firsthand the need for blood constantly. I'm with the Blood Bank of Delmarva. My name is Tony Prado, communications specialist, and we are charged with keeping all 19 hospitals in the Delmarva Peninsula stocked with the blood products that they need. It only comes from the generosity of donors like yourself. Thank you very much. And I know you're very popular. Sorry for all the phone calls and emails. O negative is the universal donor, and that can go to anybody in
Yes.
an emergency when we don't know your blood type. And you mentioned the traumas, and that's one of the big reasons why we collect blood, right? There's also scheduled surgeries that happen. People might be getting a hip or knee replacement, and suddenly they need blood in the blink of an eye. Or you have your cancer patients, burn patients. You have sickle cell anemia is a big
Yes.
one. Other forms of anemia, and there's just all kinds of reasons why people need blood. And the quote that you started with at the outset reminded me of our donors. You, Sarah, are an elite company. According to America's Blood Centers, 62% of the U.S. population is eligible to donate blood, but only 3% do.
Gosh.
You are, elite maybe is not the word. But it's a good start, right?
What a
Well, thank you.
discrepancy that is. 3%.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a constant challenge, and for some reason it got worse after the pandemic. We haven't
Okay.
really recovered to pre-pandemic levels in terms of people being engaged in the community, giving back, and doing something as thoughtful and life-saving as donating blood. So I'm kind of a hustler. I'm always trying to get people to get donate blood. We have he's retired now, but Ron Groff used to volunteer in our Salisbury Donor Center, and people would be like, "Hey, you're the guy from the blood bank," and he's out in a restaurant or whatever, and he'd be like, "Yeah, how you doing?" He's like, "I haven't seen you in a while. Come on in and see us at the donor
Yep.
center." And so welcome to my world. That's me.
Yes. There were a few. A regular place for me was the downtown center for a long time when we lived in Wilmington, and there were people there that then moved to Concord or to Newark. And I remember when they hadn't seen me in a little while, they were like, "Hey, haven't seen you in a while. Where are you?" And I was like, "Well, don't worry, I'm still donating. I just have been going to Concord, or or maybe we were downstate and I was at a blood drive or something like that, But yeah, absolutely. It's funny because those people are committed and have been there for a really long time.
Yeah, you mentioned the Wilmington Donor Center. I've been with the blood bank 7 years now. Before I started, we had closed the Wilmington Donor Center, and I still heard about it for the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And I wish we hadn't closed that center. But we do have mobile blood drives all over the state. And I'm happy to say we just opened our 6th donor center in Middletown, Delaware. It's in the Dove Run Shopping Center.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's only 2,000 square feet. It's kind of small, but it's a great place to go. Those people were driving to Dover to donate or up
wow.
to Newark. So now we're happy to say that we made it a little easier for them to donate blood. And it was, we saw the mobile blood drives, the bloodmobiles, the firehouse were doing great. And we were like, you know what, we got to be here more permanently. So we're always on the hunt for new locations. Speaking of which, we had a storefront in Tanger Outlets in Rehoboth Beach that was very popular.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
wow.
had to close. Somebody moved in that couldn't be within 100 feet of a medical facility, so it didn't work out for us. But we're going to be back next Tuesday, October 8th. It's called a pod, and it's a portable facility that we're going to set it up in the parking lot, and we can have people come and donate blood. So people that loved Tanger, I'm happy to say, you can go donate there again for a couple weeks in
great.
October.
That's fantastic.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
So
Might actually get my husband to go back.
There you go. Keep it close to home.
He is also O negative, so he also gets the calls. And
Oh, wow.
And then he always talks about how his spleen hurts afterwards, and I tell him that that's not a thing.
at least
Very
he does it,
specific
though.
pain.
Please
He does.
thank him for me.
He absolutely does. And he's one of the ones that when we were living in Wilmington, his blood got transported directly to Nemours. He would donate fresh blood so that it could go to the kids at Nemours. So that was great. But yeah, he does like to milk it for all it's worth, But yeah, tell us about you. Now, what brought you to the blood bank? What's your background and what got you there?
So I like to say, in general, I'm a writer. So I was a newspaper reporter for 13 years, give or take.
Oh, wow.
When I first graduated from the University of Delaware. I am a native Wilmingtonian, I'm
Okay.
happy
All right.
to say.
And a blue hen.
Yeah,
So
that's
are we.
right. All three blue hens here.
University of Delaware, go Delaware. We just had a great blood drive there, by the way, on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
We had 130 students and some staff sprinkled in there donate blood. That was the largest one I've seen in 7 years at the
Yeah.
Blood Bank of Delmarva.
Oh, that's awesome.
We partnered with Sigma Alpha. They're the professional agricultural sorority, and AEPI, the fraternity, also was involved in running it. And I just want to say shout out to Delaware for doing a great job. This job came up for the Blood Bank of Delmarva. My wife and actually my brother found the job description for me, and they said, "This sounds like you. You're a member of the blood bank already. You donate blood." Something my dad got me into, and I was just like, wow, this I guess it's meant to be, And I applied and I got the job, and that was 7 years ago. And I was already, part of the mission. I was already a blood donor, but then to be able to take my writing skills and communication in general and apply it to this wonderful nonprofit organization, I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got lucky, and here I am talking to famous Sarah and Tyler.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting because, you didn't necessarily take a healthcare track getting here, but I love that that your dad inspired you in the blood bank and that your writing skills and communication skills brought you to an area of service. I mean, that's so cool that you get to do what you do for such a meaningful organization. So awesome. All right. So now we talked about it before we went on air, but what are some of the big, what are some of the big priorities and things that you're seeing at the blood bank? What's so crucial out there in the community that that we need the blood bank for?
Well, I mean, like we talked about in the beginning, just universally speaking, it's a challenge to get people to donate blood. I mean, we get it. A lot of people are not crazy about needles, right? And I think some people just don't think about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. So it's a constant challenge trying to educate and raise awareness. And so this is actually a great time of year for us to try to do some outreach to the community. And it's also, September ended not too long ago. Can't believe it. Time was just flying by. But in September, we observed a couple things. Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
Okay.
And that is a time for us to raise awareness about the fact that African Americans are a segment of the population that could really step up and do some great things if we could get more of them. And basically, there's a disconnect there. African Americans are 23% of the state of Delaware's population, 30% in the state of Maryland. You know, and a big part of Maryland is our territory, the Eastern Shore. And then we have that little sliver of Virginia as well. And 5% of our donors are African American. So as you can see, that's not even half. So the last couple of years, we've made a concerted effort to try to reach that community. And that was beginning probably in earnest last year.
Okay.
Was when we finally got serious. And we saw the needle move a little bit. We went from 5.1% to 5.7%.
Oh, nice.
That's not much, but to us, we were thrilled. We were like,
Yeah.
oh my God, we're reaching people. This year, we added another segment to the fold, and that was namely the Hispanic population. So you're talking 10% of the state of Delaware's population. Only 2% of our donors. and universally, it's just a challenge to get people to donate blood. But you have small victories, whether it's in the community or, you know, I was just at Smyrna High School this morning for a blood drive where the student government kids, they knocked it out of the park. They booked 64 donors at Smyrna High School, which is a large high school.
Oh, yeah.
And to Smyrna's credit, they were the first high school to commit to 3 blood drives a year.
Wow.
Usually it's one. It's
one.
2.
Yeah.
One or two. One in the fall semester and one in the spring semester. And last year they had 3. So we wanted to go this year and take some pictures and, you know, just give them credit for being a wonderful partner with us. We try to get to all Delmarva throughout the year. It's challenging because Delmarva is bigger than you think.
Yeah.
You know, it's the entire state of Delaware, and you get the Eastern Shore of Maryland and Virginia. So it's always great when you see kids donating in high school because they wanted to get out of class and get some free snacks.
I was that kid.
I might have been that kid as well.
But then,
Yep.
so you know this, Sarah, and then you learn about the mission, and you decide to become a lifelong donor, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And we know it's happening because then they come into the center, you know, when they're eligible to donate blood again. Like, you know, kind of like you do it every 8 weeks. Like, that is fantastic. I wish everybody was like that. We'd never have shortages. Bay Health would never have to worry about us not filling their order.
Yep.
when things get a little precarious in the inventory. And so you have to savor those small victories.
Yeah.
You know, and we've also seen it at the college level too, where they donated blood and then they ended up coming back into the center. That's ideally what you want. You capture them in a mobile blood drive, and then they come into the center, where it's a little more cozy, a little more fancy, and you can sit back and relax and do a great thing for your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And to catch them at such a young age, too, where it sets a precedent for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
funny that you mentioned that because I was that kid. I was like, I really don't like needles, but I could get out of class. And yeah, those snacks look good. Getting a Coke in the middle of the day, yeah. And so I did that as I think as a sophomore, or however early you were allowed to donate. And I did okay, and I didn't pass out. And then the next year, I can't remember which organization put it on. I'm pretty sure it was like student government or something like that. I was involved in it again, and if I was involved, then I got out of school all day. So, so then I was so then I helped put it on. Then by my senior year, I put it on. I was in charge of it because I also learned that I'd be able to get taken out to lunch by the blood bank after. They used to take you out to lunch if you were like a leader in blood. So I was like, oh, I get out of school for lunch.
That's nice.
And then here I am, you know, many, many years later, and I'm a lifelong donor. So there you go. That's where it starts.
Getting out of class turned into an every 8-week commitment for you.
I know. So,
That is great. I love that story. And one thing we're going to be announcing in November is, like last year, we had a lot of success with the high school scholarship program. So,
Yep.
so for students like you, like when you were in school, like that's a way to reward them for all their hard work. I think we gave something like $16,000 in scholarships
Wow.
last year.
That's amazing.
And we're going to announce that program again just to raise awareness
Okay.
in early November.
that's awesome.
And but yeah, I love that story. I mean, and that's what it's all about. And unfortunately, the youth donation segment went down after the pandemic. I don't want to harp on the pandemic too much, but the numbers are real. We're still trying to bring those back up to the more natural levels they used to be at, 2019 and prior. But we're trying real hard, and like I said, you got to savor those little victories that keep you going.
Yeah, yeah. I always told people, I don't have a lot of money to donate, but I can donate my blood, and it doesn't cost me anything. Some people believe that, some people don't. Some people are like, I'd rather give money than have to donate blood. But it is, you do feel really good, and I've had a number of patients that have gotten transfusions working in obstetrics. Sometimes women hemorrhage and need blood. I hemorrhaged myself multiple times with children. Didn't need blood, thank goodness. But I had a patient who we replaced her blood supply 7 times
Wow.
in a short period of time. She lived, and I was able to go chat with her, and she was herself again a few days later. And to see just how emergent that was, and we were literally squeezing the bags manually as we were rolling into the operating room, and it just, when you see that, how important it is, and Tyler has certainly seen it a bunch in the ICU.
Oh, yes. I've actually had multiple experiences. In the middle of the night, a patient is not doing well. They're bleeding internally. And I've given as many as 30 units of blood
crazy.
to a patient
Yeah.
via rapid infusion. So we're, infusing that blood within 2 minutes per bag.
Yep.
And you often wonder, is there going to be enough blood for the other patients? But in order to save this person's life, you have to make that sacrifice. So.
Yeah, and
That's amazing.
for our healthcare community, the patients don't necessarily know all the policies and procedures that we go through, but it's required of every hospital to have a rapid or a massive transfusion protocol in place,
Right.
so that if a patient comes in and they need blood, we can get it quick, and that we can do it in a certain amount of time. And that's required of all hospitals. And so that's something that we practice. We practice it in the simulation center, but that's, when you see just how fast that blood can go in and how much it can save people's lives, you realize, that we need lots of people to donate, lots of pints of
yes.
blood. And it's always worth going and seeing if you qualify or, something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Last week, September 26th, when we had our grand opening for the Middletown Donor Center, one of our media friends was interviewing our medical director, Dr. Bruce Sakis, about, what happens when the inventory gets too low? And Dr. Sakis said something very interesting. He said that we start to have conversations with our hospitals, serious conversations
Right.
about what patients need to be prioritized,
Right.
kind of like a triage. How are we going to manage what we've got, and who's going to go without, at least temporarily? Because and that's what happens when you hear a blood emergency is declared, and we haven't had one in a while, thank God. But that's what's happening. You have to basically prioritize who's going to get the blood. Obviously your traumas and emergency situations are going to be top of the list, but then somebody who's getting their knee replaced or a hip surgery, they're going to be postponed, and
Right.
Things like that. Or maybe God forbid, one of the anemia patients, they're going to have possibly a transfusion that's delayed. And like in the case of sickle cell, that's very painful. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes you talked about a blood exchange. Sometimes there's patients in our list that get a complete exchange of their blood, because that's the best thing for them. They just gotta get rid of those sickle cell shaped red cells and replace them with healthy red cells, which comes from, like we've been talking about, the generosity of people. Look, folks, it only comes from the human body. We talked a little bit about the fact that despite how advanced we think we are in the 21st century, we're nowhere close to creating synthetic blood. Right. It has to be the real stuff. It's the life force. It's
Right.
We lose our blood, we die. It's to quote the the master swordsman from Game of Thrones. He's like, you poke a hole in the man, the water leaks out, he dies. You know, so we
love that.
were able to figure out we can replace the blood
Yeah.
and save someone's life. And you guys, kudos to you for seeing that, you know, regularly on a regular basis on the front lines. And thank you for the work that you do. So, and it's fun to meet some of the people that we're supplying, if you will.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, when we get, so like I said, I do get calls and text messages. When we get that text message or that call that blood is critically low, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like on your end? Because I get that. I've seen those text messages.
So we ideally maintain a 7-day inventory,
Okay.
and that means that at any given day, we can supply all 19 hospitals in the Delmarva Peninsula with all the blood products they need. When it gets to 3, 2, or I've even seen it less than 1 day, that's what an emergency is.
Okay.
And of course, it varies by blood type. So if you're talking about O positive, that's almost 40% of the population. So you have to keep that in stock more than any other blood type, just because it is the most common blood type.
Right.
But the hospitals also love it because it has a lot of versatility. If you're, O positive can go to anyone who's Rh positive. And we can talk a little more about this as well. The paramedics are using it out in the field now. It's called low titer
Right.
whole blood, O positive whole blood. So that a 7-day inventory for O positive is going to be greater than something more rare like O negative, which has its own figure for a 7-day supply, but it's not quite as large because, they're only 7% of the population, but we over collect to the, basically we collect almost 10% of the blood we collect is from O negative donors. That's like 3 points higher than what they are in the population. And it's just because, Sarah, you're popular.
Yeah.
And you can help so many people.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say I'm B negative, and I do tend to be a terrible pessimist. However, I am in the top 4. I'm the core 4: O positive, O negative, A negative, and B negative. Those are the 4 most sought after blood types. And you can throw in A positive, the second most common, and we call that the Fab 5.
Okay.
Okay.
So it just varies, but the 7-day inventory is the magic number. Once you get to 3 or 2 days, you're skating on thin ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And, I feel like maybe the blood bank has expanded some of the qualifications. I know there are people that feel like, oh, well, I wouldn't qualify for donating blood. What's the general consensus on who's capable of donating blood?
I love that question because it allows me to bring to you some good news. So last year, the FDA changed its regulations, and so members of the LGBTQ community were not able to donate blood.
Right.
And they finally changed that. They finally got with the times. Because,
Yep.
look,
That's
we
fantastic.
test everyone's blood. The blood is only going to the hospitals after a thorough screening, and it's safe for everybody.
Right.
And so they changed the way donors are screened. And, it's an intense questionnaire, as you know,
Yep.
Sarah. It's almost like an FBI interrogation, and that's for the safety of the blood supply. And so it's more of an individual case by case basis. And so we don't just discriminate against a whole group of people and say you can't donate blood anymore. We finally got with the times, and we were at the FDA's mercy. Right. But I tell you, local blood banks like ourselves, our parent company, New York Blood Center, and blood centers across the country were very effective in lobbying the FDA to say, look, you guys got to change this because
Yeah.
we're excluding
Yes.
people that want to do good for
Yes.
their community.
Yeah.
And so we brought them into the fold. The other big one, thank God, finally, they got rid of the mad cow disease.
Oh,
I
yes.
didn't notice that
Deferral.
one.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you had lived in a period of time for like 5 years or more or something like that in England and Germany and other parts of Europe, and you're talking about military personnel for the U.S. military,
Yeah.
you were disqualified from donating blood
Wow.
because of this risk of mad cow disease, which really, I would meet like English people and others, people who had lived in Germany, and they were perfectly healthy, and they were fine, and they
Right.
were ready and willing to donate. So they also were very happy that we finally lifted that restriction
Yes.
and brought them into the fold. And there were some other changes as well that were smart. Malaria, if you traveled to a country that was deemed a malaria risk, some of your third world countries or areas outside a resort town that were deemed risky, you were deferred for a year. Now it's a 3-month deferral.
Okay.
That makes it a little easier.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
For us. So
Yeah.
we're really thrilled about those recent changes, which were for the, they were positive and good for the community in general.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're communicating that here today too for our listeners that are members of those groups, so that we
Yeah.
can increase that donor population.
Yeah.
I know that I'm definitely going to be
I know.
hopefully receiving those texts here soon. So.
Yes, Tyler was like, "Well, I can't do it." And I was like, "Tyler, I think the policies have changed, and
I have
so
been
you
enlightened.
Yes,
We had 2 blood drives with Camp Rehoboth, and they're an LGBTQ
Yes.
organization,
Yeah.
and they were very helpful to us
Great.
in raising awareness.
That's wonderful.
Number one, by holding those 2, I know of 2 blood drives that they've held, and they were very successful. A lot of people came out, and everybody was excited.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
because I've read those questions for years, and I've thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. Like, I don't understand. This is not, well, I'm a researcher, so I'm like, this is not evidence-based. I am not okay with this. And so it is so wonderful that those have changed, and some of the travel restrictions. Because I'll be honest, one of the things with the pandemic, and I know, you didn't want to harp on the pandemic either, but whenever you are taken out of some sort of routine for a long period of time, it's really hard to get that back into your routine. So when I couldn't donate for a number of months because of the pandemic or the, whatever the restrictions were, or, things like that, it was hard to put that back into my routine. It's the same thing with like working out or something like that. If you cut it out of your routine, it's hard to put it back in. And so when some of those, so I can imagine that, that's the one issue with bringing everybody back, post-pandemic, is reminding them that, hey, this was something you felt really passionate about before. And I've found that the people that donate all the time, you don't know who those people are. They're kind of like silent heroes. Like, I know one, his name is Greg Mack, and he's in my mother-in-law's band. He donates every 8 weeks and never tells anybody about it. And he's got like all the Gallon awards and all that kind of stuff. And he just does it and like doesn't talk about it. He's
Well, we
like,
can say
yeah,
thanks now, right?
I know. That's why I brought it up.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there are those people out there that are those like silent heroes, and this is a way to do that you can kind of like be sneaky about being a cool person,
Well, you reminded me of something, Sarah, and don't let me forget to give you my Peter Edinburgh quote. But one of the silver linings of the forbidden word, the pandemic, was that did push the FDA as well. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that because the numbers were down as a result of COVID-19, that's why they moved on, LGBTQ, the mad cow disease deferral, and, the malaria restriction that was lessened a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was a silver lining, and I should say that. But you mentioned a couple times how blood donors are heroes, sometimes unsung, and but like you said, it's a powerful way to give back to the community. And I want to quote a platelet donor of ours, Peter Edinburgh. He's a South African gentleman, and I'll butcher his accent if I try to do it. But I said to him, why do you donate platelets, which is a longer procedure?
Right.
It takes 2 hours as opposed to like whole blood, which you're going to be out of the center in 45 minutes, give or take tops. And he said, I don't have a lot of time to volunteer in the community, coaching Little League or anything like that. But I donate platelets, and it's my get out of jail free card. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that resonated with me because I'm in the same boat. I'm not at the soup kitchen, handing out food or doing anything noble like that. But I donate blood, and I know I'm checking off that that box that says I did something for somebody else.
Yeah.
I didn't just go about my way consuming and mindlessly and without purpose. I did something that even in some kind of abstract way I know is going to help a complete stranger
Yep.
And I love the way he phrased it, and I use it. I steal it all the time, and it's my, sorry about my ring there. It's my get out of jail free card. Donating blood.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my husband uses the same thing. So thank you so much for coming, and this was a great conversation, and we learned a lot, and we just really appreciate it, and all that the Blood Bank of Delmarva does for the community, for our hospital. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great to talk to you guys.
Yeah,
Great to
me
talk to
too.
you.
Thanks for joining us on Scrub In, a podcast on humans, heroes, and healthcare. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen so you don't miss what's next.
Please leave us a review, tell a friend, and come scrubbing with us next time.